And obviously NXT now, like you say, is this big thing. They do shows the night before big pay-per-views and all that sort of stuff. But you were part of the original NXT when it was a game show. It was a bit bonkers, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a little different. The best thing that I can say about the original version of NXT is that I was the season 1 winner because I was bloody good. But aside from that, there's not too much good to be said about it. I mean, we used to have some crazy competitions. I remember one day we had to do an obstacle course, and apparently the winner of the obstacle course would therefore reflect, this guy's going to be a good professional wrestler because he won an obstacle course, which included kind of running up and down the steps in the arena amongst the crowd and downing a pint of Coca-Cola in the quickest time, which I don't know how that relates to being a good professional wrestler, but somebody in the office seemed to think it would. So, yeah, they did away with that not too long afterwards, strangely enough, and that was probably a smart move.
And when they did the game show, how when they said to you, we're going to bring you up into this game show thing, there's going to be rookies and pros. How soon into it did you realize, this is going to be, things like obstacle courses and bonker ideas?
Yeah, it was interesting because when we got up there for the first ever show of NXT, we really didn't know what to expect. All we were told was, okay, it's going to be you 8 rookies, and then you're going to be paired up with 8 pros. My pro was Chris Jericho. I felt like I got pretty lucky with that one, to be honest with you, considering some of the options. Regal was one of the pros too. I think he was with Skip Sheffield. But yeah, that was basically all we were told. You're going to be paired with these guys, and whoever wins this, it's going to be kind of like, X Factor or Pop Idol. Whoever wins this competition is going to be WWE's next breakout star. So we weren't really told too much more than that. So as far as we were aware, there was these 8 rookies, which was, I'm not going to name them all off, but Daniel Bryan was one of them. Skip Sheffield, who later became Ryback. Justin Gabriel.
Darren
Young, Heath Slater. Are we missing one there? Who are we missing?
Michael Tarver.
Michael Tarver. How could we forget him? Yeah, so it was us 8 rookies, of which the majority of us had been working or wrestling for about 6 years or so at that point, so we certainly didn't feel like rookies. And there was also David Otunga as well, who'd been working for about 2 weeks at that point, so he genuinely was a rookie. But yeah, I mean, we weren't really told much about it other than it's going to be reality-based. We're trying to cash in on this whole idea that Pop Idol and the X Factor and stuff is the big thing in TV at the moment, and we're trying to do a wrestling version of that, and that's about all we knew. And a lot of the times we'd be thrust into rooms where our pros would already be, and they would have been clued in about what this segment is, and then they just shoved me and Justin Gabriel into the room, and we'd realize we're live on TV with a live mic going around the world to millions of people, and we somehow had to ad-lib some sort of segment without knowing where we were going with this segment, and yeah, it was a very, very strange time. And most of the stuff that was produced on that show was really, really pretty bad, if I'm honest.
But I guess the standout moment for you on that show was the talking segment that you had when all you guys had to talk, and it was like a word or something. You all had to get a word into a promo, and that was the night that things maybe seemed to go from being silly to maybe there's a shot for me here coming out of this.
Yeah, so the rookies, as we came up, we were really, we were kind of looked down on by the majority of the roster and even the producers and the people in management. We were looked down as guys who hadn't quite earned their spot yet, and we needed to go out and prove ourselves. So we weren't even allowed in the locker room at all, so we were all changing in corridors. It was a very, very strange setup that they had there. So one day we had this challenge, which was a Talk the Talk challenge, and it would just so happened to be in the O2 Arena, which at the time was the biggest place I'd ever appeared in. It was like 20,000 people or something like that, which, I had family in there that night and stuff, so it was cool for me just to get to go and do that. But anyway, we get to the ring, we don't know what this challenge is. Matt Stryker, who was kind of the compere at the time, he explains the rules. Okay, each of the rookies is going to come up to the podium. You're going to get 30 seconds to talk about whatever word I give you. And we didn't know what the words were. He had them on a list. And so the first guy goes up. It was Justin Gabriel. And Justin Gabriel was never the greatest on the mic. I love Justin Gabriel. He's a close friend of mine, amazing athlete. But the mic was never his strong point. And he got up to the mic, and Matt Stryker said, "Your 30 seconds starts now. Your word is flowers. Go." And he just looks up, and he goes, "I like flowers." The whole audience, 20,000 people, immediately starts booing. So then somebody else goes up. I think Heath had cereal, and he starts just listing off American cereals like Fruity Pebbles, which I know you've heard of now, but because of Cena. But there's a bunch of American cereals that people in the O2 Arena had never heard of. So again, everyone's booing. Skip Sheffield goes up. I can't remember what word he got, but he basically cut a promo, which was his standard Skip Sheffield promo, which had nothing to do with the word. So I think he got disqualified. Daniel Bryan got disqualified for not talking about a word. And at this point, it's a complete disaster, like most of the challenges have been. So then I go up, and my word is wind. And it just so happened in the gym that morning on my playlist, Scorpions' Winds of Change had been playing. So I immediately just start rattling off a promo how the winds of change are blowing in WWE, and this is the newcomer, Wade Barrett, and I'm going to be Britain's first ever WWE World Heavyweight Champion. The place erupts, I nail it in 30 seconds, and I've won the challenge. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty proud of myself, and I walk to the back, and I'm ready to go back to my bag that's in the corridor and get treated like dirt again. And as I walk through the curtain, Vince is thrilled, and he's there waiting for me and shaking my hand. And I didn't think Vince knew who I was at this point, so that was a cool moment for me. So he congratulates me, tell me how well I'd done. Triple H was there. He was another one who was kind of climbing the pecking order at that point, and he was there waiting to shake my hand. Chris Jericho, my pro, was waiting in the gorilla area, and he was jumping up and down, screaming to Vince, "Hey, Vince, did you see that? I taught him how to do that. He's my rookie." Typical Chris Jericho. And then I walked through. CM Punk was waiting for me in the corridor. He told me what a great job I'd done, which, at the level he was at that point, that was a huge pat on the back for me. And I feel like that was the moment where I went from being looked at as a rookie to being looked at, okay, this guy can do something. This guy has some real potential here. And ultimately, I think that moment is where I won NXT Season 1. And off the back of winning NXT Season 1, I became the leader of the Nexus because I was that guy, and I had a huge 6-month run as the, main eventing pay-per-views like SummerSlam and Survivor Series and a couple of others, and I was really kind of respected at that point. So as much as I joke about NXT, there was this moment that I feel took me from a guy who has potential to, okay, we can go with that guy right now. So it was a cool moment for me.
And when you went NXT, I remember, because obviously you all feel my pain here when we watch Raw, it finishes at 4 a.m., right? It's very difficult to get through sometimes. But there was this one week that I hadn't watched or something, and my friend had texted me and he said, "You need to watch the show, but don't read any spoilers. Like, wait and just see what happens at the end." And I had no idea what it was. I was like, has The Rock come back or something? What's happened? And at the end of the show, John Cena's in the ring, and all 8 of you surround him in the ring, beat the out of him. Justin Roberts gets choked. We won't talk about that. And it was a really sort of shocking moment because you didn't see a lot of young guys at one time be sort of pushed to that level straight away. How soon before that were you told that was going to happen? And what was that experience like for you going from, doing an egg and spoon race to beating up John Cena at the end of Monday Night Raw?
So a week prior to this Nexus debut, I obviously won NXT Season 1. I was crowned as the winner. This is our next breakout star. And as far as we were aware, the other 7 guys who'd been on the NXT show, we thought they were getting fired. It was like, okay, well done, Wade, you're through. But they were all worried about what's going to happen. And some of them maybe would get shipped back to developmental and start at the bottom again. Some of them might be done there. So they're all really down. So anyway, I go home. I'm obviously thrilled for myself, but I'm worried about my friends too. But then we all get travel to go to Raw next week. So great, travel's come through. I knew I'd be going anyway because I won. But I get there, and all we're told during the day is, okay, Wade, you're needed for a promo about halfway through the show. Angela Fong, who was the kind of backstage interviewer at that point, she's going to interview you, and we just need to say, hey, I'm here. I'm going to make a difference in WWE. I'm going to be a big star, and I'm going to be the champion, or whatever it was. Something very generic like that every new guy makes a statement like that. So said my little promo, and then went back to the locker room. And when I got back to the locker room where the other, it wasn't even the main locker room. When I say locker room, it was like the cleaner's cupboard. We were kind of shoved into the cleaner's cupboard at this point. We'd gone up from the corridor to one level. So when I got back there, John Laurinaitis, who was the head of developmental at the time, he was waiting for me. He said, right, you 8 guys now, you all need to come to Vince's office. And it was kind of strange that Vince was in his office at this point, because usually he's in gorilla at that point, in the gorilla position with the headphones on. He's watching the show. He's making the calls. He's, yelling at people when they come back and they haven't done a good job, or he's giving last-minute cues to referees, or whatever it is, he's kind of steering the show. So the fact that he wasn't there was very strange. He was waiting for us in his office. And when we get there, not only is he there, every producer, which is also known as the agents, guys like Dean Malenko and Arn Anderson and all the kind of top management in WWE, they're all waiting there too. Then we all walk in, and then there's two of the head writers from WWE in this room too, while Raw is going on. So something big has happened. I'm thinking we're in trouble because we were kind of used to being the guys who everyone kicked on if everyone was having a bad day, let's go take it out on the NXT rookies. So we're thinking, oh God, what have we done now? So it turns out, okay, you guys are going to make a big entrance in the main event today. And the main event was, I think, John Cena against CM Punk. And you guys are going to attack John Cena, and you're going to beat him up. You're going to wreck the ring. You're going to smash everything up. And we're like, is this really happening? This sounds pretty big. Are you sure you want us, not the 8 main guys or something like that? Like, no, we want you guys to do it. So we were told this was huge, and Vince actually said to us, look, this is make or break. If this doesn't work, you guys are going to be gone. So make sure it works. And that's all we needed to hear. So we were told we could cause as much damage as we wanted. The only thing we weren't allowed to do, we weren't allowed to touch any of the audience members, so we weren't going to punch anyone in the audience. I think that went without saying, but Vince did cover his back on that one. And we weren't allowed to touch the cameras, because the cameras are worth upwards of $100,000, because they're like HD and stuff like that. So aside from that, everything was fair game. Punch anyone you get near, punch Justin Roberts, punch Jerry the King Lawler, punch the security guard, do whatever you want, beat up Chad the referee, take down the ropes, rip things. We're going to buy all new stuff next week, so it doesn't matter, do whatever you want. So, cool. That sounded awesome. So the last thing that happened, Fit Finley, who was one of the agents, he pulled me to one side and said, whatever happens out there, make sure you peel back the blue canvas on the ring, because underneath the canvas there's wooden boards. I know people often think it's like a bouncy castle or something like that. There's wooden boards underneath there, and it's got a little bit of give, but I mean, it hurts when you land on them. But Fit really wanted me to expose those, and I didn't know why, but I thought, okay, Fit Finley's telling me to do it, I'm going to go do it. So anyway, we make our entrance, we start smashing everything up, we start beating up John Cena. Eventually, I pull back the blue canvas and expose the boards. And then we're feeling pretty proud of ourselves. I look at the crowd there in shock. There's a woman in the crowd who's trying to jump over the barricade and fight me, some old lady. I don't know what she thought was going to happen, but she'd taken this very seriously. And there was people had genuine shock and fear in their faces, like something had gone wrong. And I got to the back, and we were kind of getting a standing ovation from everyone. The locker room, who, like I say, had treated us like dirt till that point, were all shaking our hands, telling us what a great job we'd done. And then I watched it back, and I saw what Fit Finley meant, because as an up-and-coming wrestler, we constantly put rings up. And to us, our job is to put rings up, take them back down. Put the ring up, take it back down. You go and work a show, you put the ring up, you take it back down. That's what an independent wrestler does. So I'd seen rings put up and taken down 1,000 times. So this was all, I was numb to it. But the crowd had never seen the wood underneath the ring before in their lives. And most people have no idea what's underneath there. So the fact that we were able to expose that, what Fit was getting at was that this will look like a scene of destruction. As long as you expose that wood and show that board underneath there, it's going to look so different. And that was a huge impact. And when you look at the scene of devastation afterwards, with people lying down, comatose in the middle of the ring or on the floor, and security guards beaten up, and Justin Roberts choked out with a tie, the fact that it just looks like such chaos was this amazing visual impact for us. And we were off and running after that.
I think we should also mention at this point that the Nexus had a belter of a theme tune as well. Like, that was one of the best WWE theme tunes up to that point. Do you still remember that fondly, that theme tune? Because people still seem to talk about it a little bit.
One of the things I remember was after we did that Nexus debut, we came back, and this was the era when smartphones were just starting to get big. And the next morning in the airport, I remember meeting Skip Sheffield at the airport. We're about to get our flights home. And he clicks on his smartphone. He had one of the earlier kind of Androids or something like that. And somebody had already uploaded on YouTube the music of the NWO with a video recap of us smashing up the ring. So we thought this was the coolest thing ever. We're kind of like the NWO now in our heads, and we're going to be over to that level, and we thought it was going to be huge. So we were like, it's going to be so disappointing when they finally bring out our theme music, and it's nothing like this kind of Wolfpack stuff or anything like that. And then a week later, they finally hit this music, and we were like, whoa, that was pretty cool. And the fans really took to it, and yeah, it was just, they nailed it. Occasionally, they nailed it, and I had a lot of theme music of my career, but that was probably the best one I ever had right there, and I wish I could have kept it for a bit longer.
And then obviously once you guys were in Nexus and it was up and going, you guys beat everybody up. You beat up Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, you beat up Vince McMahon, you very, very gently beat up Bret Hart. You sort of like sashayed him over towards a limousine. But then it all culminated at SummerSlam. It was Team WWE versus Team Nexus, and it was huge because it was so different to what they were doing at the time. And I think everybody, I don't know if everybody here, did we all watch that match in 2010? I think we all thought that Team Nexus were going to win and that was going to be the sort of continuation of the storyline. But in the end, John Cena would be the sole survivor guy in that match. Going into that match, did you guys think, well we're going to win this to keep this feud going and keep us strong? Or did you think that they were going to have, John Cena and the other guys go over?
Yeah, not only did we think we were going to win because it was really the first test of this killer group that we had. It was like, okay, this is the first time we're put to the test against these top WWE superstars. We've been termed rookies the whole time. We can't lose this because we have a ton of heat. We have all this attention. Now is our chance to prove our credibility. We'll win this. And then we were told a week beforehand by one of the agents, I can't remember who, that, yeah, you guys are going to be winning. We're just figuring out all the details. So anyway, a week later, we turn up at SummerSlam, and it's in LA at the Staples Center, huge arena. And we get there and... we get down to the ring, and Edge and Chris Jericho, who are part of the team that we're fighting against, they're already down at the ring, and we all come down there. We're in our suits, and we're looking all smart and being good boys still, and just go over and say, hey, guys, we're just trying to figure out how to make you guys look like stars today. And we kind of chuckle about it, and we go off to catering and get some food. And then we come back down later on, and we're pulled to one side, and Arn Anderson says, hey, guys, here's the finish. It's going to be... you eliminating him, he's going to eliminate this guy's going to eliminate this one. So it's kind of like, dominoes are falling, this guy's out, and then we get down to the final three, which is myself and Justin Gabriel on the Nexus side against John Cena. And then we're told, okay, and Cena's going to beat you both and go over, at which point I kind of thought he was joking just to gauge our reaction. And now I realized, no, he's not joking, this is serious, John's going over. So we bring up, why is John going over? We really need to win this match. And Arn puts his hands up and says, nothing to do with me. You've got to go and speak to Vince about this. So trying to get your hands on Vince during a pay-per-view day or a TV day or anything is tough. So it took about an hour or so for us to track him down and wait outside his office and get to speak to him. We go in there and have a chat with him and say, hey, Vince, here's the situation. We've just been told that John's going over in this match. We think it's a bad idea. We think we need to go over. And Vince looked me in the eye and told me the reason we're doing this is because SummerSlam needs to have a happy ending, which is a different kind of happy ending to the one you're thinking about now. We didn't want that. We wanted one of the kids to go home happy, which, so there's not a lot you can do at that point. We've argued our case. Vince, we need to go over. No, here's what I need. I need this to go over well at the end. I need the kids to be happy. So I knew at that point I was being lied to. I knew it was a nonsense reply. I didn't believe it at all, and I don't believe it to this day. I thought it was a terrible idea. I don't think you'll find anybody who will come forward and say, at any level of wrestling, says, yeah, that was the right decision that day, but that's what it was, and there was nothing we could do about it. The decision had been made. How they got to that decision, I don't know, but Vince looked me in the eye and told me that was the reason. I don't believe it, but there we go.
And then on Chris Jericho's podcast, though, I think he had Edge on, and they talked about that specific match and said, that when they heard that John Cena was going to go over, they told him, they were like, this is such a big mistake. And after the match, or maybe a couple of weeks later, he turned around and said, yeah, you guys were right, that was a mistake. But when you guys went to Raw the next night, what's the mentality going into Raw the next night? Is it kind of, right, we need to get some steam again? Or did you think the loss maybe wouldn't affect you guys that badly? What was the mentality with you guys in the Nexus?
Well, it had been such a wild ride for us at that point. We'd gone from being unknown rookies to being the main part of the show and opening and closing Raw every week and main event in SummerSlam. So it had been an insane ride over a 2.5-month period for us at that point. So we really didn't know what to expect. We were kind of, yeah, we know we need to get our heat back. And I think we did get a little bit of heat back, but it was always going to be difficult to get back to that level we had from that initial attack when we've just fallen at the first hurdle, essentially. So I think we knew in our heart of hearts it's going to be very difficult to ever get back to that level of credibility, but the company seemed convinced that they were going to try and get us there. And I can't remember what the follow-up specifically was. I think we attacked a few people here and there, but there was definitely a sparkle had been taken off the Nexus at that point, and it was never going to be coming back.
And was there ever a conversation with John Cena about it? Did he ever come to you guys and sort of talk about it, or did you guys ever talk to him about it, or was it just kind of unsaid?
Yeah, we spoke to John, and John kind of backed up what Vince was saying, that we needed to have this positive ending for SummerSlam, which, again, it's not something we agree with. You got to remember, we were rookies at the point. We were these new guys, and we just didn't have any leverage in this argument. I mean, the most we could have said, well, either we win or we're going to go home and we're going to take our ball and go home and not go wrestle on SummerSlam. Okay, guys, see you. They would have called our bluff. We're not going to do that. We're professionals. This is what the company wants. And he backed up the story that Vince gave us. I didn't believe it from him either. I mean, if that's the case, then every show that ever happens needs to have a positive ending and the kids go home happy. I didn't know why specifically that SummerSlam had to have a positive ending. I get in some instances why you have to have that, and especially if it's a non-televised live event. You will never go to a live event of WWE and see the bad guy winning the main event, because kids don't go. You don't want the kids to go home happy. Sorry to ruin that for anyone. I don't want you to spoil the next main event you get, but the good guy's going to win, which is probably going to be John Cena. But that's kind of. That's kind of how it works, but it didn't make sense for SummerSlam. I think there was bigger things at play rather than just a one-shot deal. You had this thing that we could have kept steamrolling all the way to WrestleMania, and you killed it there and then at SummerSlam, which was, I feel to this day, a bad choice.
John Cena and you guys kept working together, and then there was the angle where John Cena had to join the Nexus. And I think something that wrestling fans have always talked about is when Cena joined the Nexus, he didn't come out in the Nexus t-shirt and the Nexus baseball cap. He still wore the Barney the Dinosaur purple t-shirt, but he wore like a Nexus armband. What's the story behind that? Because you would think that, it was like when Steve Austin, the night after WrestleMania 14, went corporate. He wore the full suit for Vince, and then, then he took it off and beat him up. But John just the whole time seemed to still be John Cena.
Yeah, so the way wrestling contracts work with WWE is that every shirt that's sold for a standard wrestler, and I would classify myself as a standard wrestler, it's different when you get to the higher levels, but for the standard wrestler like me, 5% of that shirt sale goes to me, 95% goes to the company to pay for manufacturing costs and marketing and obviously their profits too. So I get 5% of that shirt sale. So if a t-shirt costs $20, I get $1 of it. I think my maths is right there. Yeah, it is. $1. Didn't embarrass myself. So that's how it works. Now, someone like a John Cena, because he's been there a long time and he's a merch machine, he sells more t-shirts than anyone else in the company, he's managed to negotiate a higher percentage. I don't know what his percentage is, but I know it's not 5%. It's a lot higher than that. So he gets a much bigger cut of his merch. Now, the problem with the Nexus shirts were they were massive sellers, but it wasn't 5% of every shirt going to me. It was that 5% was then split 7 ways between myself and all the other guys that were in Nexus. And for John to have joined Nexus, he would then have had to cut his profits from Nexus shirt sales, which he would have then been incorporated into, with 7 other guys. So he didn't want to do it from his perspective, and he still wanted to sell his own shirts and get his own cut of his shirt sales, which would have been taking a hit if he wasn't wearing it anymore. So my understanding of why he was never putting the shirt on was because they couldn't agree merch numbers. Now, I will say I never got that story from John. That came from other people. But that was my understanding of why John would never put the shirt on. Eventually, he put it on for, I think, one show, and that was it.